When Diplomacy Dies, Humanity's Final Declaration. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Trade Consortium headquarters stretched endlessly above Ambassador Sarah Chen as she walked toward what she knew would be her final negotiation. The massive structure on Nexus Prime had been built to intimidate, with its soaring arches and walls that seemed to pulse with alien energy. For 15 years, Sarah had walked these halls, always with hope that this time would be different. Today, that hope was dead. Her footsteps echoed against the translucent floor as she approached the grand chamber. Behind her, Director Marcus Webb matched her pace, his weathered face set in grim determination. Marcus had spent the last decade coordinating Earth's defense preparations, while Sarah fought diplomatic battles. Both knew their roles were about to change forever. The chamber doors hissed open, revealing the circular amphitheater where representatives from 47 species gathered to decide the fate of galactic commerce. At the center, High Arbiter Zethkar lounged on his ceremonial throne, his scaled hide gleaming under the artificial starlight. The reptilian being had ruled the consortium for over 2 centuries, and his yellow eyes held the cold confidence of absolute power. Sarah took her place at humanity's modest podium, dwarfed by the towering seats of the major species. The familiar weight of being the smallest voice in the largest room pressed down on her shoulders. But today it felt different. Today she carried something the consortium had never seen from humanity before. Defiance, backed by strength. Zethkar's voice boomed through the chamber, his translator rendering his hissing speech into cold mechanical words. The human delegation will now accept the consortium's final terms. Your species has enjoyed our protection and trade privileges for 50 years. The new resource contribution protocol requires all member species to provide 30% of their industrial output to the consortium. This is not negotiable. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Counselor Vex Anna, the insectoid representative whose species controlled most shipping lanes, clicked her mandibles in what Sarah had learned was equivalent to smug laughter. The consortium had been squeezing humanity tighter each year, demanding more resources, more compliance, more submission. They viewed humans as a useful but ultimately disposable workforce. Sarah stood slowly, feeling the weight of every alien gaze upon her. In the past, she would have begun with diplomatic pleasantries, searching for compromise. Not today. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber without amplification, steady and unwavering. High Arbiter Zethkar honored delegates. I stand before you not to negotiate, but to deliver a message from the people of Earth and all human colonies. She paused, letting silence fill the vast space. We decline your terms. All of them. Permanently. The reaction was immediate. Delegates began chattering in dozens of languages, their translators creating a cacophony of electronic voices. Zethkar's pupils narrowed to slits as he leaned forward on his throne. Ambassador Chen, you seem to misunderstand your position. Humanity comprises less than 2% of consortium membership. You are here by our sufferance. Accept the terms or face expulsion from galactic society. Sarah's lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. Expulsion? High Arbiter, you've made the same threat for 15 years. Each time you've increased your demands, testing how far you could push us. You see us as weak because we chose diplomacy over conflict. Today you learn the difference between weakness and restraint. She reached into her diplomatic case and withdrew a small device that looked like nothing more than a communication tablet. Her fingers moved across its surface in a specific sequence that Marcus had drilled into her memory. Across human space, similar devices activated simultaneously, sending coded signals to hidden installations on every human world. I hereby activate Protocol Blackout, Sarah announced. Effective immediately, all human territory is withdrawing from consortium oversight. Our trade agreements are void. Our tribute payments end. Our colonies will no longer accept consortium governors. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over each other while Zethkar slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, demanding order. Vexana's compound eyes fixed on Sarah with predatory focus. This is madness. The insectoid hissed. Your primitive species cannot survive without our protection. The void pirates alone will devour your shipping. Marcus stepped forward for the first time, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Counselor Vexana, with respect, you know nothing about human capabilities. For 10 years, while Ambassador Chen fought for scraps at your table, we've been preparing for this day. High-resolution displays materialized around the chamber, showing real-time feeds from across human space. The aliens watched in stunned silence as massive defensive platforms rose from hidden underground installations on every human world. Sleek warships that no consortium database had ever cataloged emerged from concealed shipyards carved into asteroids and moons. On Luna, the massive Titan station uncloaked, revealing itself to be not a mining platform, but a fortress bristling with weapons that made consortium dreadnoughts look like toys. Similar revelations played out across the Sol system and beyond as humanity's true defensive network revealed itself. Zethkar's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Impossible. Our intelligence networks monitor all military development. You could not have hidden this. Sarah's smile widened. Your intelligence networks monitor what we allow them to see. High Arbiter, humanity has been planning this moment since the day we first encountered your consortium. You taught us that in galactic society, strength is the only currency that matters. We've been accumulating that currency while you've been counting tribute payments. Director Webb activated another display, showing shipping routes throughout consortium space. Red markers began appearing along major trade corridors, marking positions where human assets had been quietly deployed over the years. Every shipping lane, every communication relay, every critical infrastructure node in consortium space has human eyes on it, Marcus explained calmly. We've been your janitors, your technicians, your maintenance crews for decades. You never saw us as a threat, so you never saw us at all. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just been preparing defenses, they'd been positioning themselves throughout the consortium's most vital systems. The species that had been dismissed as primitive, laborers had been conducting the longest intelligence operation in galactic history. Counselor Vexana's voice carried a note of panic. You're bluffing. Even if you've hidden some military assets, you cannot stand against the combined might of 46 species. Sarah exchanged a glance with Marcus before responding. Counselor, the combined might of 46 species assumes those species will fight for you. Tell me, how many of them joined the consortium willingly? A chill settled over the chamber as delegates began looking at each other with new suspicion. The consortium maintained power through a combination of economic pressure and military intimidation. Most member species had joined after their alternatives were systematically eliminated. The Helix Confederation remembers their lost colonies, Sarah continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. The Corvin Republic hasn't forgotten the blockade that starved their outer worlds into submission. The Talarian Union still mourns the trade war that crippled their economy. You rule through fear, High Arbiter. Today, humanity offers something different. Hope. As if summoned by her words, displays around the chamber lit up with communications from across consortium space. On dozens of worlds, representatives from minor species were making similar declarations. The Helix Confederation announced immediate withdrawal from consortium authority. The Corvin Republic declared neutrality in any coming conflict. The Talarian Union proclaimed a mutual defense pact with humanity. The carefully maintained facade of consortium unity was crumbling in real time as species after species chose the moment to break free from centuries of oppression. Humanity's rebellion had become the catalyst for a galactic revolution. Zethkar rose from his throne, his massive form radiating fury. You dare threaten the natural order of galactic civilization? Humanity will burn for this insolence. Our fleets will reduce your worlds to ash. Sarah's expression never changed as she delivered her final words to the consortium. High Arbiter, your fleets are welcome to try. But understand this. Humanity is done asking for permission to exist. We're done begging for scraps from your table. We're done pretending that your natural order includes us. She began walking toward the chamber exit, Marcus beside her. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence as 46 species processed the magnitude of what had just occurred. From this moment forward, Sarah called over her shoulder, humanity stands on its own. Any species that wishes peaceful coexistence will find us ready partners. Any that choose aggression will discover why peaceful humans are often the most dangerous kind. The massive doors sealed behind them with a finality that resonated through the chamber. High Arbiter Zethkar stared at the closed entrance, his mind racing through the implications of humanity's revelation. For the first time in 2 centuries, the consortium faced an enemy that had outmaneuvered them completely. In the depths of space surrounding Nexus Prime, sensor arrays that had monitored human diplomatic shuttles for decades suddenly lost track of their targets. The small vessels seemed to simply vanish, replaced by readings that made no sense. It would be hours before consortium forces realized they were looking at humanity's first generation of combat-capable stealth technology. The age of human submission was over. The age of reckoning had begun. Hidden strength. When humans stop playing. Nice High Arbiter Zethkar stood alone in his private command chamber, yellow eyes fixed on the tactical display surrounding him. 6 hours had passed since humanity's dramatic departure from the consortium, and each minute brought new evidence of how catastrophically his species had underestimated their former subjects. The first shock had come within minutes of Ambassador Chen's exit. Consortium communication networks across 17 sectors had simply gone dark, not destroyed but somehow redirected. Messages meant for military commands were arriving at civilian offices. Fleet coordination signals were being scrambled into meaningless noise. The humans hadn't attacked the network. They had turned it into their weapon. Commander Thylex, Zethkar's military aide, approached with visible reluctance. The insectoid officer's carapace was slick with nervous secretions as he delivered his report. High Arbiter, our intelligence division has completed their preliminary assessment. The situation is unprecedented. Explain, Zethkar hissed, his tail lashing behind him. The humans have been infiltrating our infrastructure for at least 15 years, possibly longer. Every major installation has human personnel in critical positions: maintenance crews, technical specialists, communication operators. We estimate they have real-time access to 70% of our operational data. The magnitude of the deception staggered Zethkar. While the consortium's leaders had viewed humans as useful servants, those servants had been systematically documenting every weakness, every security protocol, every strategic asset. It was intelligence gathering on a scale that boggled the reptilian mind. Deploy the Third Fleet to human space immediately, Zethkar commanded. Blockade their primary systems. Cut off their trade routes. They'll surrender within weeks when their colonies begin starving. Thylex's mandibles clicked nervously. High Arbiter, Third Fleet attempted to establish blockade positions around the Sol system 3 hours ago. They encountered complications. The main display shifted to show grainy sensor footage from the fleet's approach to Earth's outer system. What the consortium commanders had expected to find was a handful of aging defense platforms and perhaps a few dozen patrol ships. What they discovered defied all their intelligence estimates. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter wasn't just a collection of space rocks. Hidden among the tumbling debris were fortress installations that had been masquerading as mining operations for decades. As Third Fleet approached, these installations shed their camouflage, revealing weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the consortium arsenal. But the true shock came when human ships began emerging from what appeared to be empty space. Stealth, technology that rendered vessels completely invisible to consortium sensors, allowed entire battle groups to position themselves around the alien fleet before decloaking simultaneously. Admiral Korvex reported that human vessels appeared to materialize from nowhere. Thylex continued. Their weapons technology appears to be several generations ahead of our current capabilities. Third Fleet was forced to withdraw after losing 12 ships in the first engagement. Zethkar's claws scraped against his throne's armrests. 12 ships lost in humanity's first military action. The species he had dismissed as primitive had just humiliated the consortium's finest fleet. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out as the true scope of humanity's preparations became clear. On the colony world of New Geneva, consortium peacekeeping forces found themselves surrounded by militia units equipped with armor and weapons that outclassed their own equipment. On the mining stations of the Kepler sector, human workers had transformed their industrial facilities into military production centers. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the stealth cruiser Phantom's Edge, watching consortium forces flee from yet another failed blockade attempt. The sleek human vessel had been built in secret shipyards carved into the dark side of Mercury, one of dozens of such facilities that had operated undetected for years. "Ma'am, we're receiving transmission from Director Webb. Her communications," officer reported. Marcus Webb's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but satisfied. "Captain Rodriguez, Phase 2 is now active. Begin systematic disruption of consortium supply lines. Target their fuel depots, communication relays, and logistics hubs. No direct attacks on populated areas, but everything else is fair game." Elena nodded. "Understood, Director. We'll make them feel the cost of their arrogance." The Phantom's Edge vanished back into stealth mode, beginning a campaign that would bring the consortium to its knees without firing a shot at civilian targets. Across human space, similar vessels were receiving identical orders. They would strangle the consortium's economy until its leaders had no choice but to negotiate from a position of weakness. On the consortium capital world, panic was beginning to set in. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries were suddenly plagued by mysterious equipment failures. Cargo ships found their navigation systems malfunctioning, forcing them to drop out of hyperspace in empty systems. Communication relays that coordinated shipping across dozens of sectors began broadcasting nothing but static. Counselor Vexana burst into Zethkar's command chamber, her compound eyes wild with desperation. "High Arbiter, our economic projections are catastrophic. If these disruptions continue, 17 member species will face critical shortages within the month. The Helix Confederation is already demanding immediate relief supplies." Zethkar's voice dripped with venom. "Then perhaps our wayward members will remember why they need consortium protection." "You don't understand." Vexana clicked frantically. "The humans aren't just disrupting our operations, they're actively supporting the rebellious species. Corvan Republic ships are being escorted through dangerous sectors by human stealth vessels. Talarian Union colonies are receiving emergency supplies from hidden human stockpiles." The true brilliance of humanity's strategy was becoming clear. They weren't just breaking free from the consortium, they were systematically dismantling the fear-based control structure that kept dozens of species in line. Every successful act of rebellion inspired others to consider their own liberation. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the war room deep beneath Geneva, coordinating humanity's multi-pronged campaign. Banks of screens showed the status of operations. Across known space, each display representing another small victory in their impossible war against galactic tyranny. "The Arcturus Syndicate has agreed to our terms," reported General Harrison, humanity's senior military coordinator. "They're providing safe harbor for our deep strike teams in exchange for protection from consortium retaliation." Sarah nodded, marking another ally on their growing network. "What about the Sigma Centauri negotiations?" "The Vorthan Collective is still undecided, but our intelligence suggests they're leaning toward neutrality. That alone would cut off 3 major consortium supply routes. Each new ally represented a crack in the consortium's foundation. Humanity had learned that in galactic politics, perception often mattered more than reality. By demonstrating that the consortium could be defied successfully, they were encouraging other species to question the established order. The decisive moment came during the third battle of Nexus Prime. Zethkar had assembled the largest fleet in consortium history, pulling vessels from every member species to create an armada that should have overwhelmed any opposition. Their target was Earth itself, the symbolic heart of human resistance. The consortium fleet emerged from hyperspace, expecting to find Earth's defenses concentrated around the home world. Instead, they discovered that humanity had turned the entire solar system into a fortress. Defensive installations hidden throughout the asteroid belt, stealth minefields deployed along likely approach vectors, and battle groups positioned at every major gravitational body. But the true masterstroke was tactical. As the consortium fleet spread out to avoid the obvious defensive positions, they found themselves facing not a single battle line, but a three-dimensional maze of human forces. Ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking from unexpected angles before vanishing back into stealth mode. Admiral Patricia Stone, commanding the human defense from the dreadnought Constitution's Truth, watched the alien fleet fragment under coordinated pressure. "Execute Maneuver 17, she ordered calmly. "Drive them toward the Jupiter corridor." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of tactical superiority. Human forces herded the much larger consortium fleet into increasingly disadvantageous positions, using their stealth technology and superior coordination to dictate every aspect of the engagement. The decisive blow came when the consortium's command ship found itself isolated from its escorts, surrounded by a dozen human vessels that had appeared as if from thin air. High Arbiter Zethkar, commanding the battle personally, watched his tactical displays with growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. "Open a channel to the human flagship," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. Admiral Stone's face appeared on his screen, her expression professionally neutral. "High Arbiter, I believe you wish to discuss terms?" The formal surrender negotiations took place aboard a neutral station in the Kepler sector, with representatives from 37 species observing the proceedings. Sarah Chen sat across from Zethkar, no longer a supplicant begging for consideration, but an equal power broker dictating terms to a defeated enemy. "The consortium will recognize full human independence," Sarah stated, reading from the prepared terms. "All tribute payments and resource quotas are permanently terminated. Human territory is sovereign and will not be subject to consortium law or oversight." Zethkar's agreement came as a barely audible hiss. Around the negotiation table, representatives from dozens of species watched the most powerful organization in known space bow to a species they had dismissed as insignificant. But Sarah wasn't finished. "Furthermore, the consortium will enter into mutual defense agreements with any species choosing to leave its authority. Economic sanctions against former member species are prohibited. The age of forced membership is over." The final terms established humanity not just as an independent power, but as the protector of any species seeking freedom from consortium control. Within months, the galaxy's political landscape had been transformed completely. Years later, historians would mark humanity's walkout from the Galactic Trade Consortium as the moment when the old order died. The species that had been underestimated for their peaceful nature had proven that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are those who choose when to stop being peaceful. High Arbiter Zethkar, stripped of most of his power and authority, would spend his remaining years wondering how his species had so completely misjudged the humans. They had seen servants where they should have seen strategists, weakness where they should have recognized restraint, and compliance where they should have feared the calm before the storm. Humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson that would echo through the centuries. Never mistake patience for weakness, never confuse diplomacy with submission, and never underestimate a species that chooses its battles carefully. The age of human independence had begun, built on the foundation of meticulous preparation and the courage to stand up when standing up mattered most.